Welcome to episode number 84. I was about to say 34. 84 of the Eavesdrop podcast. 84 episodes. My man Julian, Obey, Castro. How do you say your name? Alias?
AEOLUS.
AEOLUS.
Yeah.
From Obey Alliance.
Yes,
now 1%. Thank you for stopping by. You're still in Frisco. I thought you were in Florida.
Yeah, no. Stayed in Dallas.
Not happening?
Not a fan of the Florida humidity.
Yeah.
So,
bro, I don't mind visiting. Miami's even like a little bit I don't know. It's not for me.
yeah.
We went there for Fwizz's bachelor party. It was me, Nate shot him, and somebody else, and all his friends from high school. And it was just like not my vibe, man.
Yeah.
We were driving Lambos, and he was still not my vibe.
Yeah. I went down to Miami for a event with Luminosity, and I was there for like 4 days. I was like, I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too hot. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's like an opposite of New York City in a way.
Yeah.
So.
Is that where you're from originally?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in LA.
Okay.
And then I moved to New York City when I was 13.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm in the middle.
Now you're middle of the country.
Yep.
So let's start from the beginning. Name is Julian Castro, AEOLUS from the once Obey.
Yep.
We'll get into what happened to Obey because Obey was one of the companies that got acquired by Infinite.
Correct. Yep.
That's how we met in person. So let's start at the beginning. You lived in LA. Why?
Yeah, I mean, my family is originally from LA. We grew up. My dad, my mom had me when she was about 16.
Mm-hmm.
And grew up. I loved California at the time, but honestly, to be honest with you, by the time I left and I went to New York City and Dallas, I'll never go back to move there again.
Why?
It's just like, for me, I love how Dallas, to me, is like the middle of New York City and California. Like, you can still get your city life in a really good way, and you could also still get your suburban life.
Yeah.
And that's why I really love Dallas. Like, I feel like I get the best of both worlds. And then in New York City, I loved it. Just such a diverse place, so much culture. There's just like
Were you like in NY, or were you?
Yeah, I was in Manhattan.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
So growing up there, it hardened me. You know, you got to be a tough one, taking the subway every day, like an hour to school. Like,
damn.
And it's a crazy place for sure, but it really does teach you like work ethic and persistence, because I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than getting on the subway at 5 o'clock, peak traffic, like 20,000 people around you in one car. You know.
Damn.
After a long
You'd
day.
have to like push your way in there? Really?
Yep.
Now they don't even have that unless you have a mask.
I could not imagine. Me and my mom were just talking about that because I was like, I could not imagine how it is right now in COVID getting on the subway, because it already was super uncomfortable otherwise. So
I bet, man. You know what's crazy about that is that we were, where were we yesterday? Oh, we went to Fogo de Chao right down the street in Plano. Everybody's wearing masks, obviously. Like, it was me and the guys have been super good. I get tested like once every other week.
Right.
Most recently, I got the one right down the street. There's one right here in Sports Village, where by the time I got back to the studio, I left the studio, went there. They fucking stabbed me in the back of my neck or my nose. And then by the time I got back, I had a phone call and it came out negative. And I'm like, that's a positive, right? And she's like, yeah, it's a positive. It's a negative. Confused me. They should just say, you don't have it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I like negative. It's like negative to me. It's like a negative connotation. So I'm like, oh shit, I got it. Because that's the bad part. And we were sitting there and we're like, man, we're looking around. And I'm like, man, this really is reality now. Like, we really are sitting here and everybody's wearing masks.
Yeah. I'll be in the store sometimes and I'll look around and be like, man, am I like alive right now? I'm in an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Like, it feels weird, genuinely. Like, there's a sense of just, it feels like really non-realistic at times, you know, like a movie. So
it is. And what's messed up about that is like, it's a new reality that we sort of all, I don't know. Like, Courage tweeted out something this morning about us at the McGregor fight a year ago.
Yep.
And what's crazy about that is like you saw thousands of people this close to each other wearing no masks.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, wow, I don't even remember what that's like.
Yeah.
And what's messed up about that is like, unless you take the vaccine, I mean, even after you take the vaccine, are people still going to be wearing masks? Are you going to wear a mask in public, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of other countries, there are people that just wear masks naturally because it does help in preventing you from getting the flu, things like that, which could be just as harmful potentially to some people. So I think we are a long way from normal. I think people underestimate the journey forward from this.
Yeah.
I think like coming into 2021, people are like, oh, okay, we're going to get our new year back potentially towards the end of the year. For me personally, I don't see this ending till like 2022. And even then, I still think it will be a little bit weird still. So I think we do have to embrace a new norm. I think this has really challenged everybody to think about life a little bit differently, even from like a work standpoint, you know, people working from home. My girlfriend works from home a lot more now.
Yeah.
And I think job places are starting to embrace that a little bit more too. So.
Well, we've been homeschooling Liv since she was. We've always homeschooled her, and we always talked about her going back into like the public system. 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and the issue there is that now I'm like, I don't know. I mean, now that she's so used to this, like even if we sent her to private school, or even if we sent her to some weird other school where it's a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know if we will ever do that. And what's messed up about that is that she had all her social interactions, because obviously that's important. All her social interactions came from basketball, tennis, dance class, and volleyball, I think. And that went away. That went away super quick. And that's messed up because that's what they're growing up in, right? Like, we've never had to grow up in a situation in which like there's sort of these crazy needed mandates for you to protect each other from this thing. And I was talking, who else was I talking to about the flu shot? Once you get the COVID shot or the vaccine, you're supposed to obviously still wear your mask and still be proactively combating this thing. But I don't know if I can live in the, I will for as long as I can, but at some point or another, man, I'm going to get just too annoyed.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. There's been moments where, me and my girlfriend will, like, go out to dinner and just take all the proper precautions, put on the mask, things like that, because at some point, like you said, you just get so overwhelmed from being inside all the time. And I feel the same way. Maybe I can do, like, about another year.
Yeah.
But after that, I want to be able to just go forward, live my life. And if it's at the cost of taking a few risks, I mean, at that point, I'd rather do that than be stuck in home.
Yeah.
Because it's just tough. It really is tough. And I couldn't imagine, even from a kid's perspective, what it's like just being stuck inside all day. I mean, in Dallas here, I see a lot of kids still, even in the public school system. The other day I was driving by, and I seen like a bunch of kids, no mask outside, still going to school. So in Texas, it's a little more loose on the mandates.
Yeah.
So,
We barbecue COVID over here.
Yeah. So
I do. It's tough because when you're outside, obviously, and you're next to people that you're not necessarily. Look, I am all for it. At the beginning of all this, when I was wearing my mask, people that I knew that were like super Republicans were like, "Why are you wearing that mask?" And I'm like, "I'm just," he's like, "You believe in that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, common sense says that I do. Science says that I do." And I didn't want to have an argument with these like old dudes, so I was just like, I'm like, yeah. More importantly, like I want to let people know that I respect them enough to protect myself in case I have it, or in case what I mean.
Right.
It's more of me being a good human being to my fellow humans and saying, I'm wearing this. And at the beginning of all this, it turned, obviously because of the campaign and all, it turned into this like massive political thing where if you wore a mask, you were anti-American, and if you didn't wear a mask, you were anti-science, right? And it was just like, I don't have time to fucking argue with anyone. I'm just going to wear it, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I try to respect both sides as much as possible, but I don't like politics and science. I just try to keep it straightforward. Like, let's just respect each other, put on the mask, keep people safe. Yeah. It's as simple as that to me. I try to keep out of the left, the right, whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Are you taking the vaccine?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at this point, for
Maddie,
me,
are you? Yeah, are you gonna let a couple of people go first?
I think we have the chance to see a couple people go first right now, and I've seen good and bad things, but for me, if it means I'm gonna be able to return to normal life, I'm willing to do a lot more than just a vaccine just to get there. So
there were a couple of stores here in Texas and across the United States, I believe, that opened their grocery stores, or so whether it's Tom Thumb or whatever, like all these other ones. Or Kroger, I think it's the other one. They would open their doors from 7 to 8 a.m. to allow older people to go in there by themselves with none of us dirty, age brackets to go in there. And I think that's cool. I think that's a good norm. If I'm gonna visit someone older, if I know there's gonna be older people, and like I will wear a mask because. Like, they're more vulnerable, which is why they're getting the vaccine first. And I didn't want this to become a COVID conversation right at the beginning. So let's just stop it right there. You're the current CEO of 1%. You were the director of Luminosity for a year.
Yeah.
You owned and general managed Obey for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Is that your first? When did you start with Call of Duty and sniping specifically?
Yeah, I started back in 2010. My uncle, I'll never forget it. I went to his apartment. He brought me in. He showed me Call of Duty 4, and like I was addicted
How old
right
were you?
away. I think I was like, honestly, don't even remember at this point. But it was right when World at War came out.
Okay, so that's 2009.
All right. So I think I was a little bit under.
Wait, 2008. 2008.
Yeah. So, I got addicted to that game. I got a PS. Oh. Got addicted to that game. I got a PS3. Was playing it, and I remember when Modern Warfare 2 first came out. It was really like this uprising of the sniping community. And I had tried dabbling in YouTube. I think Modern Warfare 2 went through its phases, right? It had like the initial launch phase, and you still had your snipers that were new to the game, but it wasn't like this big, crazy YouTube sensation that it turned out to be. And I still remember all of the old Optic videos. I remember coming home from school, seeing Predator release a new montage that he made in a couple of days and getting super hyped. And that really fueled me to start to create on YouTube is the Optic Predator and a lot of the other snipers that were in Optic at the time.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't the best sniper, to be honest with you. But then the trick shotting stuff happened, and became a big part of that community. Started on PS3, moved over to Xbox, joined a couple of like trick shotting teams, I guess you could say, and eventually by just leading those teams, managing, making content, ended up in Obey. And that's really how my path went to Obey.
So Obey was already a thing, and then you joined it?
Yeah, so
and
Obey
then you
was
took
already.
over.
Yeah, so
it's like me and Optic.
Yeah, so Agony actually made Obey, FaZe Agony, and he ended up staying in it. But when I came into Obey, I think from our perspective and from my perspective, Call of Duty teams and trick shotting teams, sniping teams, other than, obviously Optic FaZe, were really looked at like this is just a hobby. Like we have this huge fan base, this huge audience, but we're not really doing anything with it. We're not monetizing it. We're just making these videos for a lot of people. And I came in, I was like, how do we make this a business? Because it is, Obey at the time had, I think it was like 400,000 plus subscribers. It was doing really good. And I started going to companies, started getting our name out there, and we made the push.
When you started going to companies, you mean like sponsors to see the sponsors of the team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went to the DX Racers, and I went to the Logitechs. I think at one point we had Logitech and Razer back then at the same time. I don't know how we did that.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
headset,
had a lot of success.
Headset for Logitech or headset for Razer?
At that point, it wasn't even categories.
How did you even get those?
I don't even know. It was like affiliate based deals, one of these like brand deals that we have now. But we were working with Logitech, and honestly, the person that helped us the most, at least get to the esports phase of the company, was DX Racer. We had like a 5% commission code. And I remember one month, I started getting advertisements out, pushing out in our videos, like use our code. And one month we just got a massive paycheck out of nowhere. And it helped us. And I took that money and I invested it to get into esports. And
by that time you had already, what's his name? Agony had already left. And
so
how did that happen?
Yeah, so Agony, when I originally talked to Agony, I was like, look, we need to make this a business. There's money coming in. Where do you stand? Because obviously I wanted to respect the fact that he made the team and technically owned it. And he was like, honestly, it's yours. I was like, okay. So I got the LLC drawn up. I was actually in college to become a doctor at the time. And
a doctor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I just went forward with it, and it was a ride for sure. It was a lot of learning. I had no prior business experience. I was managing this LLC taxes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Dude, tell me about it. Right? Like it was those days will define like the next 10, right? The same way that these years that we're living in right now will define the next 20, et cetera, et cetera. But it was one of the weirdest thing, getting a paycheck and not having your taxes already taken out.
Yeah.
Giving people paychecks and not having the taxes already taken out. So in situations like that, you're like, okay, so what do we do? And at the time we used to take 10% of all of the money that went into, so if you uploaded a video, if you're Predator and you uploaded a video to Optic Nation, we would keep 10% for taxes and also for travel and funding the esports team. And it was the weirdest. I don't know. I didn't read any books. I had no clue. I had some corporate experience, but not this detail oriented sort of level of corporate experience. So the learning process of the last decade has been like insane.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go, people who don't go to school and don't understand like the structure of a business, and you have to learn by trial and error, you get hit a lot harder. Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is worth it to go to school. And I know a lot of people trash on going to school nowadays because all the information is there. At the time, it wasn't. At the time, YouTube wasn't what it was. At the time, it wasn't what it was. So it was difficult for me to even like do the research, and I wouldn't even know where to fuck to begin.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was. I agree with you. It was definitely tough, and I had our ups and downs with that. But I think it was a really great experience. And looking back, I'm just really thankful I went through it, because like now, I don't even have it fully figured out now.
No one does.
But honestly, those years like grinding Obey and like the passion of that project for me was things I'll always remember. You know what I mean? And I still am very passionate about what I'm doing now. But it's like those first years of like really getting your shot that really like defined me as an individual, I think, and defined everything that I perceive is like, it's crazy going from that kid looking back, that used to trick shot on Call of Duty, and now you're getting these huge paychecks and you're paying people, and you don't know what you're doing, but you're trying to make it make sense because you want it to work bad.
So obviously Obey becomes like this massive thing. It what's crazy? I was thinking about this. Like, there are Call of Duty players, and then there are snipers. You know what I mean? And like, if you didn't come from that era of sniping, I think that you don't truly understand the value of word of mouth, the value of the props that you used to get from people. And I don't think anyone will ever do that again. Like, like the competitive sniping and their trick shotting isn't as popular as it was. Like, if it wouldn't have been for the sniping community, do you think that Call of Duty would be as popular as it is today?
I don't think so, truly. I remember the uprising. I remember when you first made that Sniper's Nest about FaZe, and I remember the uprising of FaZe Fakey, and I remember the viewership. I was like, what is happening? Like, it was truly a movement at the time. For those first few years, I mean, it really helped define FaZe. I mean, it's obviously massive today, what it is as well, but those first few years of Call of Duty trick shotting in the summer of like 2012, 2013, BO2 completely blew that space out of the water. I think Black Ops 2 was the game that really changed everything. Like for sniping, for competitive, for everything.
We had good snipers.
Yeah.
We had DSR. Was it DSR?
DSR and Ballista.
And Ballista. That was me. Yep. Ballista. On-scope Ballista. Dude, the opportunity was the ship carrier. The amount of trick shots that went off there. But by then, I think that there had been, the little subcultures. Like there were snipers, competitive snipers, trick shotters.
Right.
And then underneath there's the competitive snipers, montages, montages top. There, like the amount of work that we all put into content creation to build this audience. There's a reason why we as Optic are as big as we are in Call of Duty, and it is because of sniping. It's not because of Nadeshot. It's not because of Scump. It's not because now obviously it is, but at the time it wasn't. By the time that we entered competitive Call of Duty, it was impossible to catch up. To catch up.
Very true. I will never underestimate your guys' influence in Call of Duty. I mean, even when I was like, honestly, I had no clue. I remember making just an Optic name and jumping in 1-4-2 free for all just because. It's just the Optic movement in sniping. You had, Jambi in the competitive scene when he first joined on PS3. That was a big deal. It was like the power of that your guys' brand's name was just, it was immense, man. It was felt. And you had like, this is Optic, like they're the best sniping team. And then you had FaZe with the trick shotting stuff. And there was like this really good dynamic that I think was healthy and led to a lot of growth.
Yeah. So Zergris. It all started with Grizz. Yep. What's crazy about that is that we played with him, but we were playing competitively, like against side by side in the good old Call of Duty 2 days. And when I saw him do a 360 swap from a pistol to that, I saw it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But it didn't really like capture me the way that like fucking winning. I'm just a competitive person. So when people started doing the trick shots, I was like, man, that's so fucking weird. Like I get it. And obviously like Tommy coming from the skateboarding thing and tricks being like what it is, like I completely saw it. Like I saw what was happening a mile away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like these kids, because they're younger and they're there for fun, are going to take off. Like I knew it immediately. I knew it. When I interviewed FaZe Fakey and I'm like, there's a fucking movement about to happen, and it was right, and we didn't know. Right, we didn't know the level of competition that we were going to be in. I was in this like mental state where like we're so far ahead of the game that no one's going to catch up. And then I have this like I see what's happening, and I see that they're just recruiting millions of people, just like recruiting after recruiting. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why are they doing that? Like, why are they letting so many people into phase? Like, because we were taking the approach of like, unless you belong here, you're not here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was, I don't know if it was, obviously it's not a mistake because it led us to where it led us, but I wonder how much better off we would have been, or was it by a lot or a little, if I would have turned that dial and allowed just people to come in or picked up just talent that was coming up. Because obviously we had that opportunity, right? We had the name, and I don't know what it was, but by that time, I think that we were already, just picked up Nadeshot, and I saw what was happening behind the scenes from a business standpoint with competition, that I was just like, all right, like sniping is now secondary. While this vehicle took us here, now I have to hop out of this car, hop on this one, hitch this old car into this one, and then go to the next iteration. But it's one of those days where you don't know what you're doing, but you're just following your instincts, and like somehow it works out. So I think that like going into these like different areas of Call of Duty and attracting new fan bases like helped a lot.
Yeah. Now, I could definitely understand what you mean by like taking this old car and changing it, because that's kind of what I went through with Obey. Sniping and trick shotting towards the time where I started to look into esports, you could tell it was on the decline in popularity, and you had to make the right choices to think, okay, how do you take your business to compete and be relevant in the space? And I think that's how I got into getting into the first esport we got into, which at the time was Smite.
Really?
We took.
You didn't start in Call of Duty?
No, we took everything we had. I mean, Call of Duty was pretty expensive by the time I could afford to even touch esports. And I took everything and I put it into Smite. And actually, the first event, we ended up qualifying for the World Championship. And actually, like, there's a moment in my life. I think, have you ever seen the Disney movie Inside Out?
Yes.
Where it's like the core memories.
Yeah,
I really feel like that's a thing. And something for me that's always a core memory is, we went to the event. That was my first actual esports event with my team. And we went all the way to the grand finals against NRG at the time. NRG is super, massive esports org, especially in Smite. They just won another championship the team before. And I remember the feeling before, again, the semifinals went to game 5 against a team called Eager.
Yeah.
And we won.
Was that in Atlanta?
Yeah, it was.
Was there? It was in that like bowl.
Cobb Energy.
I was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Actually, that's crazy. But I was.
There was like banners, banners everywhere. Yeah,
I remember I'll never forget that feeling for me of hearing the whole crowd cheer "Obey, Obey!" Like they were saying like "Obey, Obey, Obey, Obey," because my team was EU at the time. And I remember like the feeling of just feeling like this is it for me. Like this is like what I love. Like, this is what I want to do. And that really like propelled me, I think, in my vision with Obey forward. But man, esports is just so fun. I do miss it to an extent because we're mostly content right now. Yeah. But the feeling of rooting for a team and all that's on the line, especially when you're on behind the scenes and seeing how much goes into it and how much passion and care. Those games mean a lot more than people think. Yeah. So.
This morning, and this is being recorded on a Sunday. I don't know when you guys are watching this, but are they gonna watch it today, Matt? Okay, so today, as you're watching this, I almost tweeted out this morning when I woke up. I'm like to all you Call of Duty players competing today, like enjoy it, because there are people like me who would love nothing more than to know that there's a match coming up and not having the skill to really represent for your banner that way. So like it's I one thing I will always be jealous of is people who get to like represent for their team that way.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so much from behind the scenes, right? But I don't know, man. Imagine like some people are fighting and shit. Like there's a bar fight and there's like only 4 people can fight, and you're like, damn, I want to have their back, but I can't fight for shit. Get my ass beat. But yeah, be honored that's happening. All right, so as the years progressed, towards the end of 2017, you got approached, or were you seeking for investment? Like how did that come about? Were you here already?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I was in New York City still.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was kind of trying to touch on that because we had just won the Fight for the Crown event, which was the first H1Z1 event, which helped us really stabilize the business for a little bit. But I knew that eventually, like, especially with how esports costs were elevating, especially at that time, it was like everything was going through the roof. Like, if we don't get an investment, we can't touch this space.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
And I remember Chris Cheney, John Spire actually connected me with Chris Cheney, and I had a few conversations with him, and eventually he came to the decision to want to bring Obey into the Infinite Esports umbrella. And it was.
Did he tell you the whole thing? Like, he's like, we're gonna bring Optic. We're gonna.
Yeah, I had an idea of what was going on, but at the time,
I did not
understand the. Well, that's we already got.
You know, I will say this: Chris Cheney and I over the last year have consistently like met up for lunch and had, you know, we've hashed out all of our differences. I do think that things could have been better if things would have been better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he knows what he's talking about. And he's got good thoughts towards the space.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. So,
but he didn't tell me, just for the record, right? I didn't know. It's like I walk in and I'm like, maybe I was just like blinded by the opportunity and the money.
Yeah, I will say Chris is a very good mentor to me. I love that guy a lot. He's helped me a lot. But I will say I will never forget the day I came down here, because in my head I'm like, man, this must be, you know, and on paper it sounded so nice.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Optic is there, and obviously I've always looked up to you, as you know. I always looked up to the Optic brand. So there's a part of me that was like, man, I would love to even get a taste or even a bit of his knowledge or that brand or how it feels. And then there was allegiance. It was so much. And I walked in the office and I was like, this does not feel exactly how I expected it to. Not in a negative way, I guess, but
what did you experience? What did you expect? And I'll tell you what I expected.
I expected a really collaborative environment where everybody was excited to be there.
Yeah. wasn't that it? No.
It was complete opposite, to be honest with you. And it was a wake-up call. But at the time, just being forward, I mean, I didn't really have, you know, that was the best choice. It changed my life completely. It put me in the position to do what I love, gave me a shot of like actually showing my management. So my management skills and Obey and what it can be. And so I had to take it. And, you know, looking back, I still don't regret it because it led me here. But, you know, it was a ride. And that whole experience, that whole year was probably one of the most crazy of my life, seriously. Because, you know, you come into this position where now you're making money off what you're doing. And now, you know, I'm this kid where we just talked about how the fact that I'm managing an LLC barely, but now I'm managing the fact that I have investment expectations. There's budgets, you know, you have to manage so much more. And on top of that, you have to do it in an environment that you've actually never been put in before. I hadn't actually worked a real job, to be honest with you, because I'd always been in college. So I had to get into an environment in the workplace with other people and meetings. And, you know, it was a lot, but it was so invigorating for me because it was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I personally am somebody that's like, if I'm going to jump into something, I'm going to put everything I have into it with every part of me and see where it happens. And that's how we got into the Infinite space. And I still remember the first time I saw you, like, hey. I'm like, hey. Because I could feel it, because at the time, I had one lunch meeting with people in that office, and I knew everything going on. And I remember coming out of lunch meeting, I'm like, man, only if I knew how much stuff is happening behind the scenes right now. It was a lot.
It was.
Yeah,
it was a lot. Man, I like to be friends with everyone. I'm just that dude. You know what I mean? But when it comes to that logo right there, you know, it's like the claws come out as it said. And I don't know why, but I don't. It was my fault 100% that I wasn't more informed on what I was. I don't even want to say that because I did. I was informed. Like everything was there for me. But I do think that maybe my ADD during that phone call, my HDHD during the phone call where they said, yes, and we're picking up Obey and we're picking up this other team and we're going to have, you know, this team and then this team and this team. Like I must have been like reading an email because that completely like went away. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I want to say that I regret doing what I did, but I kind of don't, right? Like I regret taking my hands off the wheel, and we're not gonna make this about me. This is your interview, but I don't know, man. I still feel as though something happened there, because I don't go into partnerships with a bad intention. I don't go into partnerships thinking like the worst ever. I don't go into anything thinking the worst. I know what's gonna happen in every single scenario, and in this one, I have all the support that I want to be able to pay the players. I don't have to worry about where that next paycheck's coming from, and I'm not worried about how am I gonna pay the players. I'm not worried about that anymore. Like, so I'm feeling like elated, right? I'm so happy that that's the biggest weight off my shoulders, and then all of a sudden, like, players are like, "Yo, what the fuck is this?" And this contract's this thick, and I'm like, who was it? Stanislaw at the time. He's like, "Yo," he's like, "What's up with these contracts?" And I'm like, I looked at it. I'm like, I felt bad. I'm like, there's something in there.
He's just too big. You know, there's something bad in there.
My first thought was like, there's something in there. But I'm like, I'm part owner of the company, so I gotta be like, all right. I'm like, hey, you should have a lawyer look at that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not coming from me. And my old contract was like three pieces of paper that said, this is what you're gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do. In case you fuck up, you can leave. In case I fuck up, I can leave. Yep. Like, you know what I mean? Or vice versa. And I was like, you should look at that. And then who was it? I don't know if it was somebody else on the team was like, yo, what are these? And I'm like, you got to read them. Scump and everybody else is like, yo, we're not fucking signing shit. And I'm like, yo, just have somebody read them. Like, let's just sign it so we can get to work.
Yeah.
Right? That was my thing. Like, trying to just sign it. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. And where I wanted to innovate, there was no room for innovation. Instead, we were expanding. And I'm like, no. We need to build this thing. We need to build this thing. We can't, expand that way.
Right.
And if I ever came off as an asshole, or if I ever came off as like I didn't want to be there, I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with everybody except for me, and not necessarily like the environment around me. It was more like I knew where that thing was going. You know what I mean? Like, we're going this way, and all of a sudden it's like 1 degree, right? If you picture a rocket that's going to the moon, if you're off by 1 degree at launch, you might do a 360. If you have one short leg, they say that, right? You have one shorter leg than the other. Imagine that. You're going to be going in circles. You're not going to be going straight. You're not going to be going where you're planning on going. That's a problem. Yeah. So, all right, let me take a quick second to say hello to the sponsors, and then we can come right back.
Got it.
This week, ExpressVPN coming back for the umpteenth time. I don't even know how to say it. But as you guys know, we use it. Obviously, the security around what we do is imperative. If you get hacked, although it's easier now to get your accounts back, you do not want to risk losing a sponsor or being in a bad situation with the community by allowing some dude to hack your stuff and post ungodly things on that. So what is ExpressVPN? It's simple. It's an application for your computer, smartphone that encrypts all of your network data and tunnels it through a secure VPN so that your ISP cannot see any of your activity. What does that mean? So you have your address. 5757 Main Street is this one, but when I'm on the internet, it might show 2235 McAlpin or whatever. It pretty much disguises where you're browsing your data from. And what's good about that is that you can literally say that you're from any country, and I'll tell you why that comes into play a little bit later. But just think about how much your life is on the internet. Sadly, every site you visit, video you watch, or message you send gets tracked by ISPs, internet service providers, or other tech giants who can then sell your information for profit. For example, if I say I am looking for workout equipment, that just heard it, so Instagram is going to give me ads for that. That's what they mean by all of the things that you say or do or search are being tracked. That's the reason that I recommend ExpressVPN. It's the best way to hide your online activity from your ISP. You download the application, tap one button on your device, and you're protected. And ExpressVPN does all of this without slowing down your connection. That's why that's why it's rated the #1 VPN service by CNET and Wired. So right now, stop handing over all of your personal data to ISPs and other tech giants who mine your activity and sell off your information. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust to keep me private online. Visit expressvpn.com/H3CZ. That is expressvpn.com/H3CZ to get an extra 3 months for free. So go to expressvpn.com/Hecz right now to learn more. If you're on Netflix or whatever and you want to see a show that's no longer there, if you change to say you're from England, you're going to get those shows. So Trickery, Australia, you can say you're from anywhere to see the library of their stuff aligned. And you're not going to see that in their language. Obviously, you have your choice of seeing it in any language. So obviously, you can change it to English, Spanish, French, whatever it is that you want it to do. Right? I'm watching Lupin right now, incredible show, and it's originally in France, and although I do like to watch the content as that, more often than not I'm doing something else, so I do need it in English, but that's just an example there. Okay, so one more time, expressvpn.com/H3CC to get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for absolutely free. A new sponsor of the podcast has just stepped into the arena. What is Upstart? Upstart is a fast and easy way to get a personal loan to pay off your debt all online, whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses. Over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get a simple, fixed monthly payment. If one thing the last year has taught us is that not everything is guaranteed. There's small businesses that go out of work, and if you work for some of these businesses, then this is something that may benefit you because you're able to get a loan while everything comes back online. With a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate upfront for loans from $1,000 to $50,000. So there you go. Look at that. That sort of safety. Now, again, obviously it's a loan, so you got to pay it back with a little interest. So you can get approved the same day and can receive funds as fast as one business day. If debt is taking over your life, it's time to get a fresh start with Upstart. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/eavesdrop. That is upstart.com/EAVESDROP. That's upstart.com/eavesdrop. Don't forget to use the URL to let them know we sent you. Okay, so click in the one in the description down below if you're looking for the loan, and then when you get there, go through all the process, and you may be able to get your cash as quickly as 24 hours. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/eavesdrop to get started. Let's get back to my man, AEOLUS. So a huge shout out again to both ExpressVPN and Upstart for helping us continue to do the podcast. All right, back to Julian. Julian, so what was that like to you, right? Obviously, you walk in, you don't see that, it's not what you imagined, because what I imagined is exactly what I said we wanted to do, right? I outlined exactly, I'm like, I want to create this esports city, right? I want to have an esports bar like Nirvana downstairs or Nirvana, like I wanted that. And we picked several spots, like the amount of places that we were going to, the amount of recordings that we did, because we did every single spot that we went to that was a possibility. Like we recorded every single set, and we had so many dope ass spots that by the time we did that, by the time that this happened, and I didn't know that we were going to hire 90 people. I didn't know we were going to hire 30 people. I didn't know we were going to hire 15 people. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, I'm like, why are we building office spaces instead of building studios, instead of building you know what I mean?
Instead of building this.
Yeah. Something like land centers and shit like that. So to me, that's what I imagined. I imagined an esports city in which people can walk downstairs, go to their stations and play there. Yeah. Right. If they needed to stream, then obviously there's stream rooms. Like I never imagined that it was going to be what it turned out to be. And I get it, right? Like from a business standpoint, getting a place over there, it's okay. Co-sharing a space with somebody and I get it, because we were trying to get either the city of Dallas or the city of Frisco or the city of Plano or the city of McKinney to give us subsidies for us to build our compound there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I imagined.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, it was really a structural decision for me to go into Infinite, especially at the time. It's just so funny. I was laughing when you're talking about, like, I don't have to worry about paying the players. That sense of relief alone what did so much for my mental health. And I remember going to it was basically because I wanted more assets. I wanted more minds on the Obey brand. I knew I had the vision, but I was a kid, not to undermine myself, that needed a lot of help to understand, okay, how do we approach this? How do we brand this? What steps should we make next? I was looking forward to that collaborative process with individuals that I respected. And I think my biggest challenge with Infinite and then of that year was stepping into the office and realizing, for the most part, definitely understanding where you're coming from, but for the fact that 99% of that office was focused on Optic all the time. And I like trying to get a percent of their attention and time to paying attention to my brand. It was a tough road for me. It was very infuriating. I remember talking to Chris about it. I'm like, hey, like I came in here because I thought this was going to be a collaborative process. And yet I'm feeling like I was Julian back in New York City, just in an office space and with not having to pay the bills. And, you know, money is great and having the ability to sustain yourself, but happiness and my passion for what I'm doing. If I wasn't doing this, I might as well be back in school if I wasn't happy doing it, in my opinion. And so that was a tough process for me, and I really had to put a foot forward and take command and just be like, look, like I need you guys to pay attention. You know, Obey ended up having a really good year that year. We ended up picking up the house, like we grew really fast. The YouTube started to do really well. We had our esports teams didn't really do that good, but we kept that investment pretty minimal, to be honest with you. And the challenges there, they were tough. I still remember one of my favorite memories. And this is an Obey memory. It's funny to everybody that was in Obey that came in the office at the time. I remember walking up to they had this board, and they had a board of like all these creators that they wanted to get on Optic. And me knowing Optic as I did, I walked past it, and you're seeing like they have like Gwen Stefani up there and like all these. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is so out of touch. And I just remember laughing for like an hour at lunch. I know sometimes Matt was at those lunches, or Roger too. Roger, obviously a good friend as well. And yeah, it was interesting. And it definitely was not. Matt? No, not Matt. No, there was another Matt in the office.
Was it Matt? What the fuck? You betraying me?
Roger. And yeah, it was interesting. And the demand for respect basically got us a little bit of help, but even at that, I started to realize that the help might not even be a good thing.
Yeah,
that was
I have
another
a picture.
thing.
I have a picture of that board somewhere. I keep all my phones because of all the conversations that, like all my texts. I keep all my phones, and I haven't turned. I do have a picture of that board.
Yep.
Gwen Stefani and I was just. I saw other shit in there that I was just like, I'm like,
Beyonce.
But what are we gonna do? Yeah. And then I was like, what's up? I was like, what's up with all these names? He's like, oh, we're going to shoot for the stars. So I was like, I'm like, okay, this is starting. This is a new thing. Let me see where it goes. I already knew where it went. And I'm the fastest. And I don't know where during that thing, and we were just talking about this with the Conor McGregor, right? With Conor McGregor, and, you know, that he didn't seem like he had the fire. And I said, money makes people soft, right? And I'm not calling him soft. Obviously, like he'll always be, you know, personal life aside, personal issues aside, like he'll always be one of my favorite fighters that has ever great. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, that's how I saw it. Yesterday when he got knocked out, as he went down and I saw that last punch, I literally turned my TV off and I went to sleep. I was mad. I'm like that's enough. But I don't know where I lost my footing in those days, but immediately the money made me soft. Because my assertive, no, we're not doing it, period, end of story, no, I don't want to hear anybody, went away. Because I would have said no immediately. I'm like, nope, fucking wipe the board off. We're not doing that. And I would have I wonder, right, if I would have separated myself from Optic earlier, the way that I did most recently, if we would have gotten, we would have saved a shit ton of money because they would have seen the impact that would have done, right? If Optic wouldn't have been Optic during the Infinite days. And if I would have left, or if I would have quit, or if I would have done something, like, I wonder what that would have done, or how much sooner we would have been able to get to where we're at, like, sort of today.
Right.
But I saw that, and there was a lot of stuff that I know in theory it made good sense to the people that were like sort of thinking about this, you know, doing this, but I know that I knew that it was not going to work. And I don't know how I knew that. I know because I know the people that watch us. You know, I know them. I know what they want, even when they don't think that they want that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that you saw the board. We were wearing the same shoes one day, you and I, right?
Yeah, I was wearing the Undefeated collab Adidas. Yep, those, the black,
the black ones. Yeah. Yeah. I remember, I think that was the first time you and I talked, and it was just like a brief thing because I was fuming, walking out of the cake.
I could tell, yep.
Yeah, and I was like, the board made me sort of be mad about it. And then we had so many good things, like when Jonathan Althadone we did something. It was like this, like the most produced piece of content we've ever put out, and it was like a live stream, and it was me and John O. They called him Asian Jay at that point because Jay was sitting next to me in the beginning part of the conversation, and then he left, and then he came in and started talking about it, and I felt so happy. I'm like, this is what I wanted. It was like, I don't know if it was just one light like this, but it was something more produced than we've ever produced, and I felt happy about it because it meant that we were moving forward from a content perspective, from the shit that fucking matters.
Yep.
And then immediately after that, like, something wrong. When we threw the Optic Arena thing, there was nothing. There was no promotion. There was nothing. And I knew that if people didn't show up, it was going to be a bad reflection on Optic more than anything else because we didn't do the right thing to do it. And when I said, I'm like, where are the fans? They're like, somebody says like, yeah, that wasn't my job. And I'm like, why weren't we promoting this on the podcast? Why weren't we promoting this at the end of every single video that we were doing so people can come and meet us? And Jack was Jack was there. If you think about the people that have come through our stable, like Jack was one of them. And if it wouldn't have been for that sort of situation, Jack wouldn't be 100 Thieves Jack. Jack would still be Optic Courage. And I'm not salty about that because I'm still really good friends with them. But we missed so many opportunities by focusing on the wrong thing that it enrages me at times because, and then Chris and I talk about this all the time. Like, we would have been that. We would have been in the top 3. We would have been $500 million company easy. I just know easily. I just know.
I agree.
And for me, that sort of stinks a little bit. For Chris, it stinks a bit. I'm sure it stinks for Jay too, right? Because nobody wanted to do this. Like, I didn't want to lose one of my closest friends. He didn't want to lose me as one of his closest friends. But when it comes to that, the claws come out. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to stop that. And I don't think I ever want to stop that.
Yeah.
So during all of this, were you at any point like telling them, I'm like, we need to revisit our contract or the purchase agreement because I'm not getting for Obey what it is?
Yeah, no, that didn't come until Chris Cheney ended up having to go out of Infinite. I was trying to put my best foot forward in every possible way because it hadn't even been a year yet for me. And it was really a really hard situation when what you were doing is working, but on the backside, it's not being supported. And so trying to figure out that dynamic, it's like this sense of euphoria because we have the Obey House and the videos are getting massive views and we're growing. Then I come into the office, I'm like, okay, this isn't sustainable though because we're not getting to the support that we need.
I saw the chart.
Yeah.
And I saw a chart of viewership, and you guys were getting way more views than Optic and way more views than
we were even surpassing like TSM and viewership at the time. It was right when Fortnite had just crazy, and the move to pick up the house like elevated that brand tenfold. And when all that stuff had went down, and the leadership change, it was felt in the room. One, it was devastating for the dynamic of the office, going in every day and knowing those individuals, the people I got let go, a lot of them good people, and great people. And then the feel of it, I'm a very culture forward person. Right now, all I'm about in 1%, it's like, how do we make the best internal culture possible? And this is something I've always admired about Optic, something about, FaZe that they do really well too. And you could just feel any internal culture that may have existed in that corporate office space was sucked out of the room. It's like revenue. That's it. I remember sitting there, I was like, this is negative. This is not good. And, we came into the situation that you and I first actually had a real conversation. And before that, I'd sat down and like, what does this look like? And, I was already on the end of my road with like, you love something so much, and I can relate. I have You Shall Obey on my arm. I loved it so much because it was the beginning for me. And the clause did come out, I was very passionate. It was very heated. Any respect, any, traditions or standards go out the window when you start messing with something that I've put my heart into, hundreds, thousands of hours, my friends, my family, I've risked everything for. And, you know, I do, you know, I have some regrets about the way I handled it. At the same time, I don't, because I feel like it was only natural. So I did visit the purchase agreement prior to that. And then, you know, we came into that situation with you. And that was basically curtains. Because once I had made the decision I did in that situation, I was the enemy. I was complete enemy. I will never forget. Like, I went from being one of the more like respected people in the office with the leadership group. Not that I was just sitting there and like, you know, just trying to do whatever they want to do, but I was just trying to like, I was keeping my head on. It's like, all right, let's push through. I'm going to do what I got to do. You do what you got to do. And I mistakenly fell into being deceived by lies and I got lied to. There was a lot of things that went wrong there. And I remember in my heart, I mean, I don't know how much we should talk about this, but I remember in my heart thinking to myself, you know, how much I would love to like be part of that, because it's what got me started. But I remember thinking to myself, like, if I'm Hector,
you're talking about Optic.
Yeah.
And
this is not the way I would ever want to be part of this, because the guy that made this, the guy that's the reason why I'm here, like I even made the steps I did. First of all, one, I was lied to and said you were okay with it. And then two,
with what?
Okay, so essentially what happened is Jay had come to us and said, hey, let's take the biggest guys in Obey, the biggest Fortnite creators, and you, and let's move you to Optic. And I was like, okay. Well, there was a lot of issues with that when it came down to it. You know, me being the position I am as a leader, obviously stepping into some talent management position with Optic. I remember seeing you. Remember you had that filming and sitting there. I'm like thinking to myself, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I mean,
I remember you telling me like, you don't belong there. You know, what are you doing? And it wasn't you being negative towards me. It's you guiding me towards the right path, because you knew it wasn't what was right.
You're never going to be happy. Dude, the fact that somebody told you, let's take your biggest assets and kill Obey. Let's use you against you. Let's use you against your brand and just let that shit go. I was like, no one, right? And what people don't get is that what I went through, two other people went through. You and Connor. Yeah, and Connor went through it with Alliance. And it, like, I know that I put a lot of emphasis on like what I went through, but like I never forget the fact that two other people went through this sort of same thing. And you know, still to this day, like where's Obey right now? The brand.
Yeah, so they got bought when Immortals had acquired that. They got bought by another previous member of the organization, and I kind of just, after that, it's like, it's not ever going to be what it was to me. No hate to them. I hope they have the best future. But for me, you know, that everything that it was at that time was gone. And looking back, I do see what you're saying. And at the time, it was just really a hard decision, because there was almost a lack of choice, because you came into this building, right, and everything is crumbling. And it's basically like, look, you can either do this or, you know, we're going to stop funding Obey. And there goes your career. And I moved my life to Texas. My family moved here too, and they still are here. And that sense being young and that sense of panic, because you don't know how to handle that situation. It's like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do. And I remember I was like, no, this isn't it. I'd rather restart completely than force myself into something I respect so highly. And on top of that, be unhappy doing it. And on top of that, work with who I had to work with, because knowing how that dynamic shifted from the point when I said no to join Optic at the end, because that was before I even spoke to you. I was like, this isn't it. I'm not doing this. And knowing how I was talked to and knowing the meetings that I had and spoken to, I made the right decision tenfold, because I almost felt, you know, I almost let myself be manipulated basically into this false reality that was just, it was bad. It was not a good time.
No,
it wasn't.
I don't think. You know what's crazy about that is that we from the beginning have never been the first to run through a door, right? Like or through a wall. Like, yeah, the first one runs through the wall gets the one that hurt, but he gets the benefit the most also. But somebody needs to go through these sort of adversities to teach what not to do to future, you know, people and future situations like the ones that we went through. So in a sense, we as Optic, we sort of needed to go through that just so we can know how to not do that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when we stepped into competitive Call of Duty at the time, obviously it doesn't fucking make any sense now, but at the time people were like, yo, you guys are dumb. You guys don't need fucking the competitive Call of Duty. Like that scene is going fucking nowhere. Just keep doing videos. Just keep doing videos. Like you guys have something really good going. Just keep doing videos. And at the time, I'm like, yeah, there's a risk, because at the time we were like, there's no losing in Optic because you're doing a montage. You know what I mean? Like we're not in competitive sniping that seriously, so it doesn't matter. So at the time, they're like, people didn't get why I was stepping into competitive Call of Duty. And Frank was like, I wanted to. I wanted to do it, and we did it. Like if you lose, that's a bad mark on Optic, and we didn't need any bad marks. Like we didn't need to risk that or risk damaging the brand by having a not so good team. But at the time I was just like, I'm like, oh, we got to do it. We have to run through this thing. We have to run through this thing, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, the reward's going to be massive. So in that sort of sense, like I'm glad that I didn't listen to anybody. And going through the whole purchase thing and then going through like that adversity, I'm glad that it happened, because I know what it feels like to not own that thing. I know what it feels like to not have 100% control of saying no to something. Right. You know what I mean? That's why when Obey was going to take their biggest people, which would have benefited Optic 100%, obviously. Yeah. At the time, I was just like, I can't. I'm not gonna do that to him. I'm not gonna do that to them either. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna put them in the line of my fire more than anything, because I see one thing. More importantly, no one's gonna be happy with that. You weren't gonna be happy with your future. They weren't gonna be happy with their future.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was laughing internally because in hindsight, you saved all of us, because imagine we had made that move and then what had proceeded to happen happened. It would have been. Tragedy for sure. I have a good imagination. Yeah. And when I apply fear to that, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? It's the quickest no in the world, man. I just know, not because I like to hear myself speak, which I do, but I'm trying to avoid me wasting my time, and more importantly, just wasting time on shit that just isn't going to work. Like right. I've been through this thing for 10 years, 10 long years on my own. I know where all the pitfalls are in the esports business. So for me, I was just like, I can't, like, I'm going through this. I'm not going to put somebody else through it just so I can benefit my brand. You know what I mean? And it's just like, this is not the way that it works for Optic anyway. Yeah. All right. So anyway, I'm glad that things worked out the way they did. If you had the choice to change 1% to Obey, would you? No. No? No. Why? Right now, I believe, like, first and foremost, I have
dope ass name, by the way. Dope ass name, 1%.
I always will love Obey. I still believe that because of how it ended up happening for me, I just don't feel like it would ever be the same for me back in it. I think we're in retrospect, we're a little bit in two different situations where you have Optic and there's this thing with so much history. With Obey, we were really getting started into actually making it a real brand, even at that time. And so as much as like the days were fun and the good old days, my attachment wasn't to the name, it was to the people in it. Yeah. And that's what got my heart going. Like that's what my passion was into. And so for the most part, I have a lot of that in 1%. And, that only got deeper through my time at Luminosity, how close I got to the guys that are now owners with me at 1%. And, I'll always love that brand. I'll always remember that. But for me, there was value in letting go of all of that and starting over. And that for me was a hard exercise, very painful. I would say the days after I left Obey and all of that were some of the harder months of my life, just trying to understand, like, you worked on something for thousands of hours and you had dreams and you sat there and you tried to envision everything that you wanted to do with it, and you had to let it go. And it hurts. Yes. I think it hurts to your core that I don't think some people might not understand. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it does. It does suck. I was empty for a fucking year. You know what I mean? I have obviously like the best thing happening, right? Like I have a really good brand with energy. I have a really good partner in Andy. And it's just emptiness, right? Like, because I am Optic Hacks, right? And the second that I wasn't Optic Hacks, it just felt weird. Like, what's going on, guys? Big Hacks? Like, that doesn't have the same rhyme as the things that I said for thousands of hours. And when you're and you understand this, but when you're so passionate about one thing, and then when you see that one thing that you love is working, and it's like and other people like are vibing with it, and everything's like is good, like you miss that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy how everything turned out. I don't think now, obviously in retrospect now, I don't think I would have changed anything. For a very long time, I did say, man, I wish I wouldn't have taken the money, because the thing with that statement though is that the money would have came no matter who it came from, right? We were too big to not get any investment that we wanted, right? And it's not like it's not that we picked the wrong partners, right? Because a lot of people that come into the space, there are investors that are super diligent and aren't too keen on taking risks, and then there are all those other investors that are like, yeah, just fucking swing for the fences,
right?
And I think we had those sort of investors in Liebman and Davis, and I would have loved nothing more than to be able to say, I made you some money. You know what I mean? I would have loved nothing more. And I wouldn't have done that. Like I built all this thing with just the money that was coming into the business. I'm not that type of person to just take freedoms with other people's money, right? Like I know that money needs to be not only refunded, but also with interest on top, because that's what an investment is. Right. And I was willing to do that. And I had my plan of lists that I wanted to do. And I knew the one thing I regret, like to this day, is the fact that I was never able to make money for those two investors, because that's just that would stink that stinks for me to this day, because it was my name attached to it. Right. It was my team's name attached to it. So the investment that they made, which will hopefully one day yield some return, that return is not coming from me, and that to me like sucks. You know what I mean? Because I know that the model that we have here works, and I don't know, that is the one thing that I regret. But I don't know. I can't say sitting here that I would do anything different.
No regrets for me either, to be honest with you. I think even in the darkest times in my life, I look back and say, thank God. Mm-hmm. Thank God it happened, because it happened for a reason. Even like, to be honest with you, I had struggled with an anxiety disorder for a really long time. And, back in that time, I was thinking to myself, like, why me? And why, it prevents me from doing this and I can't do that. But everything that happens in life, and I've learned this, especially over the last few years, there's a purpose, and you have to stay strong enough to realize that purpose. And it comes, but you have to stay persistent. Yeah. And I think that's what I've learned, and with the Obey stuff and everything, is just, in hindsight, would I go back? No, there's no reason to, because it made me who I am today. It changed a lot of lives, and those lives, some doing better, but some might, they might still be on their journey. It is what it is. Yeah. So.
The good thing about that is that they're yours, right? Your failures are yours to learn from. Your mistakes are yours to learn from. Like, if you don't tend to them, but what I mean by that is, like, if you don't remember the failures that you made to learn from them, that's on you at that point. You know what I mean? So I water mine every single day. I don't sit there and fucking think about all the bad shit, but when certain and life is all a matter of the same repetition every single time, in different forms, different disguises, different opportunities, right? Or different failures disguised as opportunities are always there. And if you don't go through these previous ones, you'll never be able to identify them, especially if you don't tend to your failures and mistakes. And right now with like 1%, how quickly did you guys get to 1 million subs?
Got it in 1 month.
In 1 month. I've been fucking 10 years in the making. Okay, still don't have it.
Yeah, that was the craziest month of my life, for sure. Yeah, it was bittersweet. It was. 1%, I think, speaking of failures, I think, it's been a good couple months. From the outside looking in, it's still really good. But I've done a lot of backtracking, looking back, and even in what I felt what was the height of my career, I'm still looking back and saying, man, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. 1% came together in 1 week, right? I mean, we were at Luminosity coming towards the end of our contract, trying to get out, and we got out, and then we're like, okay, well, what are we doing? And we had conversations, and at the end of the day, it's like, do we really want to step towards there and maybe repeat the process that we just went under, or do we want to try to take a risk? And we took the risk, and I think a lot of us knew that it was going to be big. I think we knew, like, okay, you know, we launched, we did the 10-day thing. We had like 100, I think we had 300 to 400,000 subscribers on YouTube before even revealing the name.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, all right, most we got like 500K, like in maybe a few months, you know, we'll get $1 million a year. And we launch, and I remember just sitting there, and everything that I had ever like envisioned in my head, like for Obey, and anything I'd ever envisioned in my life for what I had wanted to do happening. And it's just like, one, it's overwhelming. And I think the most overwhelming part and learning curve that we've had to go under over the past 4 months as a brand is realizing that everything you've ever wanted happened, but you weren't exactly prepared for it the way you thought you were.
Yeah.
And by what I mean by that is like putting together this org for a week, and it's basically owned by creators and the structuring of it. And when you start something, you also have to, you know, continue to develop it, continue to push it. And we, for the most part, we just planned to make it a content team, you know, and it was just us. But realizing now we need to get more people. We need to get more people involved. And so that whole process, and, you know, I remember I got that text from you. We were #1 trending on YouTube. We got #1 trending on YouTube with 3 videos in a row. And I was just like, what is even happening right now? And, you know, it was a great feeling. It was honestly a really good feeling for me to kind of just be like, this is, you know, coming out of Luminosity situation that we had with them, being like, this is what happens when we can apply our vision and really put forward, like, and speak to the audience more than just being these people that post videos on a channel because the contract says to. Yeah. And it was great. I'll never forget seeing the subscriber count hit 1 million, because it's just like, I have the plaque in my office. Yeah. It's just like, I just cried for hours, because it's like, it's a culmination of all the failures. Yeah. You know, you sit back and you're like, man, what if I had not done this? I wouldn't be here. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's also like, it's bittersweet for that reason, because it's like, man, all that stuff and all the ways you thought you would have wanted it, and you ended up here, and it's like, this is what it is. And I'm very thankful for the position that 1% has put, you know, me in, and owning a brand that I feel I really care about again. I haven't had that feeling for a while. You know, I was director of Luminosity, and you can only care so much about something you don't really own. Yeah. You don't drive the culture. It's not that I said I didn't work super hard to do a good job.
Obviously you did. No, yeah, obviously.
But the heart wasn't there. It was a complete business decision. And now that the heart is back in it, it brought in new factors for me that I had to then readdress. You know, I'd made myself be like this business person in Luminosity, right? Then you come back and like, dang, I actually really care about this. Now there's a lot more than just business. There's heart in it, and the decisions weigh a lot more, and the nights are a lot harder to sleep because you're thinking, what can I do better? And these last few months it's been crazy. And I'm very appreciative, though, because I feel like we have a lot going for us. We have a really bright future. So.
Yeah, 100%. 1%. I mean, 1%. Yeah. That's so sick, man. I'm glad that you took the path that you did, because I know that you had obviously the opportunity to, one, continue to stay on Luminosity and do your own thing. We had a conversation about that. Yep. And then you were going to come over to Energy. Like, we had that conversation. Yep. And you know, for me, during all those conversations, you know what I mean? Like, I've been where you have been, and I was just like, this dude's not ever going to be happy unless, just like me, right? You're never going to be happy unless it's you and your brain that's making the decisions, or a collaborative effort with people who are in that team. Because the one of the most beautiful things about this space is the camaraderie, and I know, like, the crew aspect of this, right? Like, everybody's in a crew. And when you're in a crew, like, you have everybody's best interest in mind, and also everybody has the same understanding that we're all building something together. And when you have other people and external factors of, like, marrying of two teams, like, sometimes that just doesn't work, right? Yep. Because it's you have different cultural values from a business standpoint that may not necessarily, like, make sense. Yeah. Like, for me, impossible, right? I know what got Optic to where it got it. So for me to try something else, never going to be an open for a conversation, suggestion sort of thing. Like, I know. You know what I mean? Like I know why this doesn't work. I know why an employee shouldn't be doing interviews. I know why a manager shouldn't be doing interviews, because that's not the voice, right? Like every decision that a team makes comes from the voice of the logo, not even from me or from you or from that. Like it's 1% talking, not Castro talking, or not whoever, Formula or whoever talking, right? Like it needs to come from that, because the fans then understand that, we're not out here trying to get the retweets, right? The team's trying to get the retweets or whatever.
Right.
So like that sort of power was like never, I don't know. It's just, it worked for us. So now I see like this is the perfect model. You know what I mean? So that's also something that you have to be mindful of, right? Like that there are opinions that do matter that may not necessarily be yours. And you have to be open for that. But you also have to be open with the fact that that something feels off, that when it fails, it's your fault. Yep. Because you could have avoided it. You could have said no, and it would have been a dead issue, or approached it differently. What else you got going on, man? What's the plan?
Nothing.
Are you guys looking to get into esports, or are you guys going to stay a content team?
Yeah, you don't have to. Tentatively looking at esports. I think for us, my goal is to stay as profitable as possible. And that's for the best interests of us as ownerships, and also for the best interests of the people in the team. Esports is a heavy investment. Mm-hmm. It's heavier than it's ever been now.
Oh yeah.
And for me personally, I think we work best as a content team, and we're continuing to expand on that. In February, we're going to be picking up 4 really massive creators to come onto the team, continue expanding upon the model that has worked so well for us and for the optics and the phases that I think we've really adapted really well. And my major goal as an individual and leader in this team right now is to just build the best internal culture possible. Like I want people to feel like they're really part of something, and they aren't just signing a contract and spending their term there and dipping. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've always wanted to spend time doing, even back in Obey. Yeah. And we're just going to continue pushing. I think that's our goal. I think the way I see 1% is a content team. I don't put us on an esports org level. We have one pro player in Fortnite who's amazing. He's one of the best. Yeah. But I really wouldn't consider us the esports organization that people have been putting us on the same level with, like NRG and Optic. And I'm like, let's put some respect on you guys' names. Like, you guys are content teams, but you also have some of the best esports teams in the world. And I think what we do best is content. Yeah. And so we're just trying to expand on that narrative and be the best content team. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I feel the same way about. I mean, I always see us as like a content first team, or a media house first, and then everything else second, because we just like to create content around competition, right? So, but at the end of the day, like, we're creating content, right? Like, the wins add to the content, and then the content adds to those wins. Like, it's a cyclical thing for us. So I wouldn't be surprised if one day you're like, all right, fuck it, let's fucking do it. You know what I mean? Because it is good, man. I mean, especially with the popularity that you guys have, like, I think it'd be really not necessarily easy from a money standpoint, because at that point you'd have to be like, all right, I might have to get investors for this thing. And then you're sort of at this point, right? Like, now at least you know that you're gonna always keep control of it, right? Always gonna keep control, because, you know, obviously you've proven yourself twice. One, that I will say this: the beauty about what happened in Infinite is that it gave you your ability to figure out whether or not you were a one-hit wonder. Yeah,
it's true.
Right? Because look at what you did with Obey. You grew it to where it was. Boom. Look at what you're doing with 1%. It's bigger than Obey now. Yep. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, you're not a one-hit wonder. You can do this. If 1%, God forbid, something happens to that, are you going to be nervous about doing it again? Fuck no. You already did it once.
Yeah. It was a crazy process coming out of Luminosity, because I remember I was thinking to myself, like, do I really, really want to take it again? You know, you have your reservations, because, like, okay, what if it ends up like the last time? You know, you don't really know, but I was just like, let's just jump. Yeah. And I think in life, anything I've done that has worked for me and has led to growth, it's just a jump. Like, the New York City kid that grew up moving to Texas, I thought it was dirt and cowboys. I didn't know anything about Texas. That's what the city kids think over there.
Beautiful bubble.
And it was beautiful. And my family loved it, moved here, and I jumped. I took a massive risk. I was actually in New York University at the time I left for business administration and leadership, and that was the school of my dreams. I literally had a vision board of it, and I left. Literally, and took the risk and put it all on the line. And that's because I think the best things in life come with all the risk attached.
Yeah.
But it's only one way to get them. And so, yeah, it's been a super big journey, but
it's a lonely process though. Yeah,
it is. People, it's lonely when you're working on it, but once it succeeds, everybody's like,
yeah, yo, what's up? Yeah, I had a couple of questions about what I meant in my. We just released the first episode of the process. Roger didn't want to name it Vision, and Hitch didn't want to name it Vision. Because obviously Vision was a Hitch thing, and Roger is such a fucking incredible camera person, editor. I mean, you name it, it's like the complete package. That he's like, I don't want to do Vision because then it's not mine. And right. I understand the importance of ownership in your process. And when you're somebody like him who loves storytelling through video, you have to give them that freedom. So I told both of them, like, all right, you both come up with a new name by the time this goes live, or I'm keeping Vision and my say goes and period end of story, because Vision is not Hitch's. Vision is not, it's Optics, right? So if Optic wants to keep it Vision, that's what it is. And guess what? I speak for Optic, so it's gonna be Vision. So they're like, all right, and they came up with the process, and I was just like, damn,
I like that a lot.
I like it too. Yeah. So in it, I said, no matter. I don't know exactly, so I'm paraphrasing, but I said, like, no matter how many good people you have around you, how many people that support you, love you, and will love you no matter how big of a success or how big of a failure you are, like, being who we are is lonely, because when something's going wrong, you can't share that with anyone because you create doubt, whether they're down for you or not. And maybe that's me not giving people the benefit of the doubt of them having, like, yo, because I know they're with me, right?
Right.
But I'm like, I'm gonna solve this on my own. I'm not gonna. You worry about your job. I'll worry about my job. So when I was saying that, like, it's true. Like, I did feel alone for a long time, and I know that I would share like certain things with like Scump and certain things with the team and certain things with like Jude and all of it with Jude, unfortunately for her. I went through a lot of stuff by myself, and I kind of had to, man, because I don't want to worry people. More importantly, I don't want people to have pity on me. I'm 40 years old. I'm not a fragile thing. You know what I'm saying? So for me to be openly vulnerable about my stresses and my I don't have anxiety. I wouldn't say that. So, but the stresses that keep me up at night, the stresses that, I'll hear a noise in the middle of the night and I open my eyes and realize where I'm at, and immediately, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. This is fucking up. You got to fix this. You got to do this. By myself, like, I can't put that on other people.
Yeah, I know how you feel. Especially, we've had our rough patches over a few months, and just, you have to make sure, at least in my head, when I go through that process, I always want to have people understand that we're still moving forward. Things are good, and so in a sense, you have to internalize that stress. That's the way I perceive it as well. Yeah. I've been trying to find a healthy medium, to be honest with you. And in the same way you confide in Jude, my girlfriend has saved my life in that aspect. Yeah. And God, every night I just go and, like, I talk it through, and she gives her best input, and God bless her, because without her, I probably would have lost my mind over these last few months. But, I think it's also the appropriate thing to do in some sense, because there is that sense, like you said, that you might be undermining the loyalty of the people around you and how down they are to be there.
Yeah.
But also, like, the leadership aspect of our job, it pushes me to be like, no, like, let me stomach this, make it good, and then talk about it. Yeah. Because then we can move forward in a positive way. Yeah. There isn't, like, going to be 1 second of me going to Formula and he's starting to doubt the future of the team.
Exactly.
And that's what you got to avoid that.
Yeah, you have to avoid it. You have to avoid it. Yeah. At all costs. Yep. I'm with you 100% on that. It is a lonely job being sort of the leader of a team. Or being the captain of a team, like, you know what I mean? Like, that sort of mentality isn't for everyone, and it crushes people. Yeah. And if you allow it, and I'm really good. I've always been really good of like you said, internalizing things or bottling shit up. But it does weigh. It does weigh a little bit. Man, it's I can sit here and talk for another hour about all the shit that we're going through, but it's good, man. I again, it feels better. And it feels good that you're saying that, like, the new 4 people that you pick up are gonna come in when there's already a culture established, because I'll see. Look, you can tell which teams have a team and which teams are being sponsors for content creators or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, people there's people out there that are just like fucking figuring shit out by saying it's like, oh, I'm gonna give this dude fucking equity and cash, and you know the dude's like, okay, I got equity and cash, I just gotta put a logo here, and they're not really putting a logo here. You know what I mean? They're not ready to go to bat for that. If somebody's talking shit about your flag, he's not gonna say shit. You know, he's like, yeah, well, you know, they pay me. I'm a
big believer in that difference.
Yeah.
And I've talked a lot about it recently on people I've spoken to, and I think one of the reasons that we've had success and the optics and the phases of the world have had success is because the creators that join it, they join it. Yeah. And they become part of it.
Yes.
And I think that is a challenge that a lot of esports teams face is you can pay somebody and you know, especially with the transparency of the industry now, fans know that they're paid. Mm-hmm. Fans know that they're getting paid tons of money. Yeah. And so their investment into the team is already almost withdrawn a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they know the nature of the relationship.
Yeah.
But for 1%, you know, one of the big things coming out of the gate was making sure that these guys' audiences knew, like, this is my
team. Yeah.
This is my team. Like, I own it. Like, the future is in my hands. I really think that is what pushed the envelope for us. I think that's what pushes the envelope for Optic and for FaZe is that people understand that this isn't just a contract.
Yeah.
This isn't just a paid salary. These people are in it because they love it.
Yeah.
They want it to see it succeed. And I think that's a different level. You get a different level of fan investment from that process. And it's very, very difficult to replicate because especially now where it's so lucrative to just sign the contract and just put your logo on something, sign for $25K a month and just sit back for a lot of creators.
Yeah.
It's hard to find those creators that even want that relationship. And I mean, you can't really blame them too, because it's lucrative as well. So
that's why I'm never one to reach out.
Yeah.
That's not me. You know, if somebody wants to join, they'll hit me up and then we can talk about it. Right. Yeah. I'll see within the first conversation, I'll know whether or not they're going to be a good fit or not. Yeah. You know, period.
It's funny you say that because people are like, how do you find all this talent? Like the talent? I don't go to the talent.
Yeah. No.
I'm actually the same way. Like, I don't really go to anybody because, like, the nature of that relationship, in my experience, is very different.
Yeah.
And I had my experience, with no disrespect, with Luminosity, working with creators that were strictly there for the contract. Yeah. It's not the same.
No.
The process isn't the same. The collaborations aren't the same. There's a lot that's different.
Yeah. And because of it, the content suffers. Because of it, the content isn't as genuine as it was. The beauty about YouTube is that anybody can do it.
Yep.
And the second that you start getting the fancy cameras, right? Like, I've always been very anti getting the highest quality cameras. And it's a good thing that Matt and Roger and everybody's here because they say it's like you're not going to lose the sense of being a relatable person because you have that. Because I've always been a super fan of saying it's like, look, guys, if I did it, you can do it too, right? Because it's about, you know, getting people to be passionate about that. And for me, it's always been like this weird thing where I picture people that are asking, like, how it's like I can't be a creator because of that, or I want to be a gaming creator. When you really love knitting, you know what I mean? Like, go knit. Don't you just because you see successful gamers, doesn't mean that you need to be a gamer to be successful on YouTube. Right. Whether you're knitting, whether you're podcasting, like if you have the ability, like you're really well spoken, you know what I mean? That's really good. When you are really well spoken and you have cohesive thoughts that add to whatever it is topic you're discussing, look how bad I am at talking. That should be your passion. You know what I'm saying? If you're a good speaker, speak. If you're a good artist, draw. If you're a good musician, make fucking music. Don't become a gamer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you suck already.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I think especially over the last year and, you know, especially with Ninja becoming as big as he did, and it really blew up kind of this space. It was big already, but Ninja kind of evolutionized what being a gamer was. A lot of parents started to look like, wow, this is serious, you know, and he took it to another level. And I think now people are getting into it and it's like, it's only for the career. And I'm telling you, like for me and in my experience and what I tell to people, you know, when they comment on the videos or they'll tweet at me, like if you don't have your heart in this grind, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Because, you know, going through the process of building the audience, making videos, making content, you have to be passionate about it. I think the beautiful thing about the internet right now and TikTok and all these platforms that you can do anything. Like you said, you can go out there and you could talk to a camera about whatever topic. And there will be people that will find that and enjoy it. And so I definitely agree with you. There's just so much opportunity to just do what you love. And when you do what you love, you find longevity in it. And I think that, and persistence in it. You know, I can't go and to be honest with you, a big part of me would benefit from making Fortnite videos, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I hate it. I hate Fortnite personally, playing it myself.
Yeah.
And so I can't do it because I can try to, and I did for about 2 months. I daily uploaded on my personal channel, but I hit a brick wall because the passion isn't there. You can't continue to grow it because your heart isn't in it. And in YouTube and in growing audience, if your heart's not in it, one, people feel it.
Yeah. And
two, you don't grow as well too. So
yeah. I don't know. We have a lot of similar views, you and I, brother. I hate that it took this long for you to, being down the street. I hate that it took this long for you to hop on the podcast. At some point or another, I'd like to bring you back with like other team owners, just so we can chop it up like a panel almost. I stopped doing panels like in 2004. No, I'm sorry, 2016 was the last time I used to get invited to all these panels, and I would go and I would just same questions, and I had an old friend of mine, Dan, who used to take me on all of them. He used to sell for us, but he used to take me to do the selling, which is like the most genius thing ever. He's like, here, I'll get the meetings. You go in there and fucking knock it out.
That is genius.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, yeah. It was like, oh, you still get paid? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm gonna pay you half. He's like, no, I'm paying full. I'm like, fine, here you go. But you know, the good thing about that is that you learn. One thing that I've learned is that if you at least take a look at every opportunity that comes, whether it's somebody like asking for, you know, a job or whatever, if you look and you read something to it, it will spark a thought on something else that he thought about, but didn't really think about it in an application that you're thinking about somewhere else. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So for me, taking at least a look at everything that comes across my desk is like something that I do daily. I'll wake up and I'll see everything, because I'll stay in bed from like 6 to call it 7:30 when I get up to take a shower, or, you know, obviously, you know, drop the boys off at the pool and all that stuff. And I'm reading through it, and I'll try my damnness to read through every single email that's come through, just in case I'm in a creative mode and some word or some composition of a sentence tells me to go do something else.
Right.
That's how the Huntsman pre-show, you know, became a thing. We were thinking about, we were talking about, I don't know what the fuck we're talking about, but I'm like, holy shit. Within 1 week, we had it up and running. Within 1 week, we were ready to roll on that thing, which to me was just like super cool. Anyway, thank you for stopping by, man. I appreciate you. Won't be the last time. I'm super happy for, you know, your trajectory and where it's going. I'm happy and hopeful, obviously, that you guys continue to grow the ways that you guys have. And I know that you're going to succeed because of what you said earlier. I want the culture to be established before those new 4 people come into here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That if you stepped into my direction and you were about to be, you know, and you're about to join Optic, the first thing I tell you is like, if you fuck up, you're out. You're not going to put me, my family, or my teammates in jeopardy.
Right.
Right? And if I fuck up, I won't, because I care too much, but just know that. Like, if you're not doing your job, you're out. If you're being lazy, you're out. If you're not innovating, you're out.
Yep.
More importantly, if you're an asshole, you're fucking out. Just no time for that.
Absolutely.
Brother, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Won't be the last, as I said. Everybody, all his information will be listed in the description down below. Make sure to follow him. And again, thank you to, who was it? Do you fucking remember? I got it. And a huge thank you again to ExpressVPN and Upstart for sponsoring the podcast. Certainly appreciate them. And we'll see you guys on the next one. We launched our Essentials collection on the Optic Gaming site. We haven't made a big deal out of it because it's never going to sell out. So if you want it, go get it. If you lose it, go buy it again. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.